Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I feel like I should be there, and I should be there, but I'm not. However, thanks to modern technology, we can still hold the lecture. So despite the inconvenience of the storm and the fact that I'll have to kind of rush over there tomorrow evening, at least we can still hold this talk and have this interaction today. And I can see some people. It's kind of hard to see you clearly. I think there are some folks that I recognize. I wish we could Zoom, but we can't. We can't Zoom on Zoom, huh? We just have a more of a distant view, which is fine. This way I can see most everyone. Oh, there we go. That's a little better. Great. So how do you feel there? Is it warm? Is it cozy? I see some people wearing coats. Are you chilly? A little bit? Okay. How's the weather there? We had this I don't know if we could really consider it a storm. We had 8 inches, 10 inches here on Long Island. It wasn't as disastrous as they said it would be, but still it was enough for them to cancel all these flights. How about there? Do you have any snow there? No, huh? Okay, I can see a little bit of the bushes in the distance. So I guess it's green. Is it sunny there today? It is, huh? Okay. I just remember, and I know it's not fair, but when I think of Vancouver, I think of rain. I think of clouds and rain and cold, but that's only part of the year. Yeah, mostly the winters. Maybe someday I'll get to be there in the summer. So it's great to see a nice turnout. Quite a few of you there. See some familiar faces. Being that it's a fairly good turnout, the room is almost full. Should that be self-affirming? Topic of tonight's talk is about self-worth and self-affirmation, right? If there are a lot of people that show up, should I feel good about myself? If very few people showed up, should I feel bad about myself? This is an interesting question, and I think it can give you a sense of the topic of today's talk, where I'll be heading with it. So the topic is self-worth, affirmation without ego. And for this talk, I'll of course be using the Buddha Dharma to explore this topic, self-worth, self-value, and how to affirm ourselves without what we call ego, or without what we call in Buddhism, we could call it self-centeredness, self-attachment. But it's interesting. The topic of the talk kind of seems contradictory, at least from the Buddhist perspective. For those of you who have heard a little bit about the teachings of the Buddha, and you may have heard the theory of no self or non-self. So how does Buddhism, this teaching, this way of life that often talks about selflessness or no self, how does it talk about self-worth, self-affirmation? Did anybody think it was a bit of a contradiction, or you find it curious? The title, self-affirmation, self-worth. Did a little question mark appear in your mind? If it did, good. If not, it's okay. You're good either way. You're not good if you had a question. You're not bad if you didn't. So the topic, which was actually posed by some members there, which I think it's a great topic because for many of us, if not most of us, I'm sure there's some point in our life where we doubt our self-worth, where we question our self-value. I don't know what your experience is. In my life, in my experience, that's been the case. There have been times where I wondered, should I be doing this? Am I good enough to be doing this particular project? Am I good enough or am I lacking? Am I not quite good enough to be doing what I'm doing? Have any of you had that question or something similar? Don't be shy to raise your hand because I don't believe you if you don't raise your hand actually. I think it's safe to say almost everyone at some point may doubt their worth, doubt their value. A lot of people that I work with as a counselor or a coach, I do what's called life coaching and mental health counseling. And quite a few people, and recently, say that not only at some point in their lives, but for most, if not all of their life, they doubted their self-worth. And they had this feeling or this thought that they're not good enough, that no matter what they do, no matter how other people affirm their value, no matter what they think of themselves, there's always some thought in the background of, I'm not good enough. And that could take different forms. It's sometimes verbal for some people, where they just have a very clear idea that, I'm not good enough in some way. For other people, it may be more visual, or the thoughts they have about themselves are more like a movie, playing an internal movie where they see themselves and they see an image of an imperfect self. Or you may have the experience of feeling that you made a mistake or feeling that you failed on something. And maybe you're replaying that scene over and over in your mind. Have you done that? Whether it's some sort of project you were engaging in, or maybe it was just a conversation. And after the conversation was over, you may have thought, oh, that was so stupid. I shouldn't have said that. Why do I always say things like that? I never say the right thing. Or why did I do that? I always do that. Or I never do the right thing. So for some of us, there's this continuous negative self-image that's playing in our mind through our thoughts, our memories, or impressions of ourselves. And for some of us, we may also have quite a strong self-criticism where we're always evaluating ourselves and pointing out how we did something wrong. Where this is wrong, that is wrong. That's really just not good enough. And, I'll never get this right. I'm such a weak person, uh, just not a good person. This is self-criticism, which when there's a strong sense of self-criticism, it's easy to constantly doubt our self-worth because the negative voice or the negative commentary in our mind seems to be permanent, seems to be always there, and that can make us doubt, make us often doubt, are we good enough? Will we ever be good enough? And this uh, lack of self-worth or this sense of lack that we may carry with us can affect how we behave, affect how we act in the world. Because if we did truly believe that we're not good enough, we may fear failure and we may end up often procrastinating. Even if we have a mission, we have an idea that I want to do something. This could be a little project for ourselves. It could be a, a large project for a society. And we may have a vow that I really want to do this project for all of society. Excuse me. But if we doubt ourselves, we may not even start that project. And we may procrastinate longer and longer and longer and say, well, yeah, I'll start that project maybe next week or maybe next month or maybe in the summer. Let me wait until the summer when I have more time. Let me wait until vacation. Maybe we keep procrastinating. Let me wait until I retire. Um, the fear of failure based on this lack of self-worth, this kind of constant self-denial, can make it so that we just don't get started on many of the things that we really want to do. And we put them off because if we fail, that would be an uh, even stronger or clearer negative affirmation. If we fail and we perceive that we fail, we may think to ourselves, I was right. I am just not good enough. You know, I won't be able to do it. I'm working with a person who she started her own business. And before she started her own business, she had confidence in her ability because she was often being complimented by others. She worked in a place where she got a lot of feedback from the boss, from coworkers, and they would tell her that she was good at what she did. I think she was doing um, work at a restaurant, and she would get a lot of feedback, and she felt confident in that work, so she could do it. She had the motivation to do it, and she didn't fear failure because she got so much affirmation. So she would show up day after day, do her job. She felt she was good at it, and she got a lot of feedback. So she shared with me that during that period of time in her life, she felt quite confident, quite stable, and had more of a sense of um, confident sense of self. But things changed drastically when she started her own business, or she's in the process of starting her own business, where she's her own boss, so there's no boss to get feedback from. She doesn't have coworkers. There's no way to get feedback from them. She has some clients, but she often wonders, are they telling her the truth? Are they giving her accurate feedback, or are they just being polite? But for her, because there's a lack of affirmation from the outside, and because she actually lacks self-affirmation, she feels that she's not good enough, and she's not sure if she can really do what she set out to do. So she often finds that she gives up before she even starts on these projects she set for herself. And she finds that even starting the day can be difficult. She'll wake up in the morning and she says, okay, I know what I need to do. She wrote it down. She has a schedule. She has a planner. She knows exactly what she wants to do and needs to do, but it's very difficult to start. And she finds herself kind of procrastinating, just lying in bed and using the phone, checking her phone, looking at what's on social media, checking some emails, which seems useful to start the day, to check emails and see what other people need her to do, want her to do. But she says she often gets lost in that. She'll check emails and then she'll kind of go off in a direction where it's very different than her original plan. She's responding to an email. She ends up responding to other people's requests, and she forgets or she doesn't get started on the things she set out to do. And it turns out for her that it's this cycle of looking for affirmation from others. She'll do what she can do to get this quick affirmation. She responds to an email, texts someone, she gets some sort of feedback that she's good, she's doing the right thing, she's good enough, right? She's looking externally for this feedback. But what happens is she's forgetting her own plan that she set out for herself because she's not so confident that she can do it or that she's worthy enough to be her own boss and she's capable enough to complete the task she set out to do. So for some people, it's this negative self-talk, negative self-image that leads to procrastination and avoiding starting things, fear of failure. For some people, this negative self-view can lead to a pattern of fearing abandonment from other people. So a person who is looking for affirmation from others, if they feel a lack within themselves, they may look for this affirmation from others in terms of just interpersonal relationships. So we may look towards the people who are close to us and in some way to try to get some feedback. Am I lovable? Am I good enough in your eyes? Or would you leave me? This fear of abandonment comes from a lack of valuing oneself and often a seeking for affirmation from others in terms of these close relationships. If I feel that I'm not lovable, what am I? Please tell me, am I lovable? That's kind of the pattern. And it plays out in very, very different ways, of course. Usually we wouldn't verbalize ourselves in that way. But maybe we end up doing things for people or trying to please people so that they give a more kind response to us. And, oh, you're such a good friend, right? We go out of our way to please people. And it could even be to help people. Could be disguised in an intention to help people, right? Oh, I just have to help this person. I just want to help people. In our Buddhist practice, we have the Bodhisattva path, Pusa Dao. It's about having this great vow to help all sentient beings, right? Some people, many Buddhists I find, are driven to do the work of the Dharma to help all sentient beings, to help other people, not only because they have a great vow, but because they feel a lack within themselves and they're looking for affirmation from others. So I don't know if you've experienced this, but maybe by doing volunteering or doing some work for others, in the back of our mind, we're thinking, ah, yes, if I do this, people will praise me. Oh, great job, David. You did such a good job on this. Oh, great talk. Or great whatever. It's possible that when we do work of helping others, we're looking for something in return. We're looking for affirmation. We hope that people will affirm our value. And this is of course normal. We all have this need to receive some affirmation from the outside, from others. But when it gets very out of balance, when we have a lacking of self-worth, we may go beyond what's balanced. We may exhaust ourselves doing volunteering or exhaust ourselves delivering sentient beings, which is actually harming sentient beings. In the process of helping others, we may actually be harming ourselves because we're driven to seek affirmation, right? So this lack of self-worth, this negative self-view can affect how we live in the world and act in the world. And it can be disguised behind some intentions, even wholesome, very good intentions. It's wonderful to help others. It's wonderful to have this compassionate vow to help all beings, help all people. But if we do that from a place of lacking, if we do that from a place of low self-worth, lacking self-worth, it usually turns out being problematic. And for some people, if they don't have a clear sense of self-worth, it can also lead to a loss of direction in their life. If we find it difficult to affirm our value and to believe that, yes, I can do something valuable for the world. I can do this. I have this capacity and I believe that I can bring benefit to the world. If we lack this kind of self-affirmation, excuse me, it can sometimes lead to a lack of direction. We don't know what to do with ourselves. We don't know what to do with our lives. Um, we may have spent part of our life just doing what other people told us we should do, whether it's um, this certain career, this certain relationship, get a career, get married, have kids, do this, do that, get a house, get your car, invest. Or maybe for others, it was a different path. But if for a big part of our lives, we were just listening to others, we didn't affirm ourselves or affirm our own direction. We were just listening to others or following others. At some point in our life, we may find ourselves confused. If we suddenly realize that that's not the path that I wanted, we may not know what to do. What do I do next? I just spent this many years of my life living for other people. What do I do next? Can be confusing. So a lot of people that I work with are often in this transition part of their life. They're in a place where they're not sure what to do, and they're unsure of how to even value themselves. So When we feel a lack of self-worth and we're unable to affirm our value, it often leads to looking for value from the outside, looking for affirmation from other individuals, from society as a whole, even from books. Um, Seeking for affirmation from outside doesn't resolve our own inner sense of lack or inner sense of uh, valuelessness. So what is the real cause of it? Why do some of us end up with this difficulty in valuing ourselves? It seems that some people have a greater difficulty than others. Some of us have just periods of our life where we experience this. Some of us, it feels like our whole life we experience a lack of self-value. From the Buddhist perspective, the cause of it is a lack of clarity, actually. If we look at the basic teaching of the Buddha, we have the Four Noble Truths, right? Four Noble Truths, we could say, are a basic teaching of Buddhism, but it can also be very deep, very profound. But it's basic in that it's the structure of how the Buddha approaches human life, human suffering, as well as human freedom and true peace. So the first part of our human condition is what I've been speaking about in the beginning of lacking self-worth, looking to the outside to affirm ourselves. This is a kind of suffering. This is a kind of dissatisfaction, right? What's the cause of it? Well, the cause of it, which is the second noble truth, the cause of our suffering, dissatisfaction with ourselves, is actually lacking in clarity. Clarity, lacking clarity of what? Well, we lack clarity in how our mind works, how our body, our mind, and the environment works. We're lacking the ability to truly experience ourselves in the moment. And we have this collection of ideas and collection of views about ourselves and the world, which can be confusing. I think it's safe to say that the average person, their view of themselves, their sense of value or lack is really just based on ideas, right? Am I a good person? Am I a bad person? It's a set of ideas. How do we get these sets of ideas? Well, part of it is our upbringing, our life experience. Buddhism doesn't talk so much about the historical development of our sense of self, whereas the field that I work in, which is counseling, field of mental health counseling, field of psychology, looks at the historical dimension of our self-development. And part of that is our life with our parents and our families, as well as our schooling and education and society. Our sense of self, either being a good person, a bad person, a so-so person, is developed based on the experiences with all these people around us. So some of us who feel it's difficult to value ourselves, um, for many of us, it's due to the interactions with these people, and we may have grown up hearing that, oh, you're good for nothing, right? There may have been a person or people in our lives that they used that very clear language, which was not affirming, but self-denying. We may have heard every day, you're good for nothing. Why don't you go and do something? Unless you do this, you're not a good son, you're not a good daughter. A lot of my Chinese clients, they say that their parents often use this guilt trip of, unless you do what I say, you're not filial, you know, 你们不孝, right? Unless you do what I want you to do, you're not a filial child. I think that's not only the case in Chinese culture, but many cultures. The parents, the society wants the individual to be a certain way. And if they don't fit that mold, you're not good. So, in some cultures, people are valued when they are smart in school, when they have good academic performance. Right? Some people look at a child and say, "Oh, look at this person. Look at he's doing so well. She's doing so well. She's got straight A's. She's got all A's and she's doing this and that." A lot of academic performance is used to evaluate the person and say if they're good or not, right? In some cultures, academics isn't the most important thing. Maybe the arts. The arts are valued more in some cultures than others. So a person's academics may not be great, but the child or the person may be flourishing or doing very well in the field of arts or creativity. And they may be praised by the parents, by their culture, or they could be denied. Could say, "Oh, you're just an artist. You're not going to amount to anything." What's the value in art? People who don't value the arts may not value artists. So the value that we have of a person is based so much on our culture and all the information that we get from people around us. And if it happens to be that we hear a lot of negativity, that we hear that we're not worthy, we may grow up and eventually believe that we're just not a good person or we're not good enough. And we may feel that, you're right, maybe I didn't do enough for my parents. Just not a good child because I haven't done enough for my parents. I really should have done exactly what they wanted me to do. Um, we may feel that we've failed as a person because of the expectations that other people gave us and we didn't follow through. So in this way, our sense of self-value is conditioned. It's conditioned based on all this information we're getting from others. Our sense of self is an accumulation of all these ideas and experiences. And we have this image of ourselves, or we have this concept of ourselves. I'm good, or I'm bad, or I'm so-so, somewhere in the middle. I'm not a great person, but I'm not a terrible person. I'm a so-so person. Um, all of these views of ourself are conditioned, right? And this is in line with Buddha Dharma, the fact that the experience of ourself is a bunch of conditions. In time, our experience of self is an accumulation of past experiences, past impressions. Right? In the present moment, our experience of self is also based on what we're faced with. So, for example, myself, my experience of myself at the moment, is this a good talk? How could I evaluate at the moment? Am I doing well right now? It's hard to tell because most of you are sitting with blank faces or some smiles every now and again, but mostly a blank stare. I don't know if you're bored, if it's you've had enough watching TV and now you have to watch this big TV at the temple. Um, but who knows why? Maybe you're just being polite. This is the way you've learned to listen to a talk. In Buddhist culture, in Buddhist temples, we pretty much sit quietly, right? In other places, other religions, other cultures, when the person's talking, everyone's like, yes, right? The audience is getting into it. Yes. Now speak the word, Brother David. And they'll get into it. They feed off of each other. I can't really know at the moment, is this a good talk? Is it useful for you? I can have some sense based on your reaction, right? But whether it's a so-called good talk, it's skillful, or whether it's a bad talk or unskillful, if it's a good talk, does it mean I am good? I'm a good person now? And if it wasn't a great talk, does it mean I'm a bad person? What the Buddha pointed out is that with all the conditions we face, we make everything into a big problem when we identify these conditions with ourself. When we make everything out to be about me, as if in some way we can control the conditions, as if in some way um, I am responsible for everything. If it's bad, I am bad. If it's good, I am good. Buddhism calls this self-attachment, or this kind of self, this fixation on self as the biggest problem, as the cause of suffering. Because we live our lives looking at all the conditions we're faced with, which many are totally out of our control, and we turn it in to ourselves. And we carry this view of ourselves around with us. So, for example, if in giving this talk, I just kind of see everyone sitting there quietly, politely, with not much of expression on your face. If I said, oh man, I wonder if I'm just not a good speaker. Maybe I'm not a good teacher. Maybe next time I shouldn't give a talk. If Tamufa should ask next time, maybe I'll say, I'll tell her no, because it must be that I'm just not a good teacher. I'm not a good speaker. But is that fair? You know, there are many reasons why other people don't react to us the way we want, right? I'm using this talk as an example. You could think of yourselves. Think of different conversations or situations in daily life where you may see another person responding. They're not responding like the way you thought. Hey, how come they're not smiling? How come they're not happy? Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm maybe I'm just not good enough. Maybe I'm not good enough for the person, right? That's turning everything into ourselves. Someone could be having a really bad day, right? And when we speak to them, the reaction we get is, a frown. They could have a really bad response because they're having a really bad day. They're dealing with a lot of stresses that we have no idea what's going on, right? But we may internalize it as, oh, maybe they don't like me. Maybe I'm not likable, right? But is that an accurate perception? That person was having a bad day. It has nothing to do with us, but we often turn it into being all about ourselves. I have a friend who often says this phrase. They say, "Nobody likes me." They're referring to themselves. I have no friends. Nobody likes me. I'm just not likable. And my reaction is, what are you talking about? I like the person. I think they're likable. And I was surprised to hear that saying from them. But they later shared they have a deep belief that nobody really likes them. So whenever they look at other people or interact with other people, this is going on in the back of their mind. Oh, look at the way they're reacting. It's probably because they don't like me. Oh, look at the way she moved just then. It's probably because she doesn't like me. Oh, look, they didn't accept me for the job. It's probably because I'm not good enough. I'm not likable, right? This habit of looking at everything in terms of the prism or this self-centered way of thinking as I'm either good or bad or so-so. The Buddha said this is the cause of suffering. We're not seeing things as they are. We're seeing things as interpreted through a view of self, being a good self, a bad self, or a mediocre self. And we're not really seeing the conditions. This this process happens because we are attached to the images in our mind, the images of ourself and the images of others. Right? The movie within our mind that we're all watching for most of the day, this plays within the background of our lives. And we use this self-centered movie to look at everything, to interpret everything. This causes so much suffering. For today's topic, I've been speaking mostly on the difficulty of having a lack of self-worth, but some people have an experience of the other extreme. They have this grandiose view or experience of self, where they are the most valuable person in the world, or at least the most valuable person in the room. And the way they interact with others and interact with the world is that the thought pattern that's playing in the background of their mind is, oh, I'm the greatest. I'm the best. Everyone loves me, which can affect, again, how they behave. For that tendency, that person may have confidence in engaging in projects and doing things, but they may have another difficulty. They don't know when to stop, or they don't know the boundary. They may think, oh, everybody wants this to be done. Let me just do it. Right? What I spoke of before was a person fearing failure, fearing criticism. So they procrastinate. They don't do something. It's very passive. For someone who has this exaggerated view of self, this overvaluing of the self, they may become very pushy and not even consider other people's feelings or other people's wants. They just assume they know. Oh, I know what they're thinking. Oh, I know what you're thinking. I know what's best for you. Here, let me just do that for you. And that's another difficulty. That's that's affirming the self from a very egocentric position, right? Still self-centered. It's just a view of self that we're the best. We can't do any wrong. You may be thinking of someone in your life as I'm talking about this right now. I know people whose parents, they see their parent as that. Their parent can't do any wrong. And because of that, the parent doesn't see the boundary between themselves and their child. The overconfident parent, the parent that overvalues themselves, they may not respect or value the needs or wants of their child. So they don't have any boundary. They try and control the child because they think they know what's best, right? That's self-affirmation, but that's very ego-centered, self-centered in a way which is also lacking clarity. We're blind to the needs or to the wants of others because we're very confident, overconfident in our own ideas, right? And that can also be possible even in spiritual communities and spiritual settings, where a person who has some degree of meditative concentration, so they're in general very calm and relaxed and confident. And if they're in a leadership position, they may tend to lead in a very authoritarian way. Authoritarian meaning they don't really consider the needs of others. They don't ask. They don't try to get feedback. They just think they know. They assume they know. I know what's best for you as my community. I know what's best for you as practitioners, so this is the way we're going to do it, which is very top down, very authoritarian. In some spiritual communities, if there's no checks and balances, the spiritual teacher can become uplifted to a godlike status. They believe themselves to be the ultimate value, of greater value than others. And their students or their followers also believe that they are greater, the master is greater than them. So even the spiritual teacher who has this superiority complex can actually um, feed off of the dynamic of people who have an inferiority complex. It works perfectly. One person believes they're the best, they have all the answers. The other group of people believe they don't know what the answers are and they don't think they can find them themselves. And that creates this unhealthy dynamic, even within this spiritual community, right? So Buddhism recognizes that self-affirmation, when it's an self-centered or egocentric kind of self-affirmation, one that's based on I am the best or I am better. I am better than you. I am better than others. That's problematic as well. Because that idea of being good, that idea of being great can prevent a person from recognizing their flaws, right? When I was a monk, we were studying monastic precepts as well as how monastics get along in communities. And there was um, the Buddha or the Sangha would often refer to a kind of monk or a nun who wasn't really open to getting feedback. They would refer that to a monastic who's hard to admonish. It's like someone who doesn't take suggestions well, basically. They believed they were great in the practice. They believed they were wise. So whenever somebody said, hey, I think there's a problem with this behavior here, they would say, no, there's no problem. I'm fine. I'm practicing in accord with the Buddha's way. That would be someone who's hard to admonish because of their self-affirmation, because of that self-attached kind of affirmation. They're unable to see their problems, right? So even a confident sense of self from the Buddhist perspective, although it's functional, it's important to be confident. Ultimately, it can be problematic if we don't work on developing wisdom, this deep awareness of self and the nature of self. Wisdom is a deep awareness that the nature of ourself actually depends on conditions. Anything that we do good, it's not just because of me, myself. Any good outcome is due to many different conditions coming together. And the things that we do are just part of those conditions, right? So the cause of dissatisfaction, the cause of suffering, and this problematic either sense of superiority or sense of inferiority comes from lacking awareness of things being conditioned, right? Buddhism also says, though, that we have this great potential. The third noble truth. What is the third noble truth, by the way? Third noble truth is the cessation of suffering or the realization of freedom. Word nirvana is used, it's a Sanskrit word, to describe the extinction of suffering, the cessation of suffering, which is also the experience of freedom and true peace. In this context, we could say the cessation of this narrow, self-centered kind of affirmation is the realization of an unconditional self-worth. May sound tricky because the word self is in there, but the ending of suffering, the realization of freedom, is an unconditional value of life, of being. In Mahayana Buddhism, um, there is a very deep and powerful affirmation, which is actually just the concept of Buddha nature, 佛性. Have you folks heard of that term, Buddha nature? 佛性. Yeah. This term appears in Mahayana Buddhist literature and teaching. And it's the affirmation that every single one of us has this potential for wisdom and freedom, freedom from suffering, and wisdom to live a skillful, compassionate life. This is the ultimate affirmation. It's not that some of us have that potential, but actually all of us have that potential. And why is that so? Why do all of us have this Buddha nature, this potential to be Buddha? Well, it's simple. It's because all of our suffering is just conditioned and it's temporary. All the ideas that we have about ourselves, whether I'm a good person, I'm a bad person, I'm a so-so person, all of those ideas and views of self are really just temporarily comings and goings of passing thoughts. It seems real, especially if it's often playing in our mind. It seems real, it seems permanent. But when we look closely at our feeling of uh, lacking self-value, or if we look closely at this arrogant, the other extreme, this grandiose self-value, what is it made of? It's just passing thoughts, reoccurring patterns of thoughts and thinking. Buddha nature points out that all of that is temporary and conditioned, and that beneath those patterns is a way of being aware and wakeful that all of us have. Each one of us has the potential to be as awake and as free as the Buddha. That's Buddha nature. So it's this ultimate kind of affirmation. So, in the perspective of Buddha Dharma, how do we find true self-value? Well, Master Sheng Yen had a kind of sequence or a progress of self-affirmation. Maybe you've heard this before. There were four kinds of progress of self-affirmation. This process of affirming ourselves and going beyond that narrow, ego-centered self-affirmation. The four, if we can call them stages, or the four aspects of this process, the first is to know ourselves. Chinese is 自我认识. The second is to affirm ourselves. 自我肯定. Have you heard this before? Yeah? What's the third? We mature ourselves. 自我成长. The fourth is we dissolve ourselves. 自我消融. Kind of sounds funny in English to dissolve ourselves. Are we like an Alka-Seltzer tablet? We put it in water and we dissolve. But it's this is the process of starting first with developing awareness of ourselves, how we identify with ourselves. Do we see ourselves as good people, bad people, so-so people? Maybe we don't know. The process of practice within Buddhism is where we first come to know ourselves. How do we do that? Well, Buddhist practice has three basic aspects, right? Precepts or discipline, meditation, and wisdom. 戒定慧. By using these practices of 戒定慧, we go through this process of first knowing ourselves. What are we thinking about? How do we feel? How do we identify with ourselves? If we don't have some form of practice or method to develop awareness, we may go through much of our lives unaware. We may go through much of our lives, for example, not even noticing how critical we are of ourselves. We don't even realize it. By having some method, for example, a method could be sitting meditation. A method could also be some form of discipline, giving ourselves limitations in our behavior. By having these practices and methods, we start to realize, oh, wow, I didn't realize I'm so critical. There's a constant voice, a constant noise in the mind of, oh, you're never good enough. And maybe some of us even hear the voice of our parents or the voice of a teacher or the voice, maybe a disembodied voice of social media appears in our mind, right? And we realize, wow, this is going on in my mind all the time. This is knowing ourselves. 自我认识. The next phase we can say is where we start to develop more confidence. We start to develop a positive, confident view of ourselves. And part of that could be through concepts, right? Even the concept of Buddha nature, it's a concept in the beginning, but it's a useful one that can bring us a greater awareness of our value. So we start to study Buddhism and we say, hey, everyone has Buddha nature. It's not just the Buddha who's valuable and good, but I am also just like the Buddha. Maybe I'm not exactly like the Buddha right now, not as peaceful or free or compassionate, but I have that potential. Reading these concepts, developing relationships with people who practice, seeing the fruits of practice in other people. So by attending activities like you're doing today, by spending time with people who are on this path, you can start to have more confidence that, yes, you do have Buddha nature, even though you may be suffering a lot. Even though you may be suffering from an impoverished sense of self or even a grandiose sense of self, and it's a problem, we start to have confidence that we can start to deal with it and resolve it. That's um, affirming ourselves or 自我肯定. We start to truly believe that we can deal with our difficulties and troubles and we can find more freedom through the practice. What is the phase of maturing ourselves or 自我成长? This is an interesting kind of phase. And if you can refer to the writings of Master Sheng Yen to see more in detail about how he talks about it. But this self-maturation is where our sense of confidence goes beyond just concepts. In the beginning, we need more concepts. We need the idea that, yes, I have Buddha nature. Yes, I can deal with my suffering. Yes, I can take up this responsibility to help others and develop myself. That's all conceptual and confidence coming from ideas and past experience. When we're in the phase of self-maturation, we don't even need those concepts. It's our experience. It's our moment-to-moment experience of a mind that's more and more at ease. Oftentimes, people who develop their meditation practice, their mindful way of living, their experience of themselves and of the environment is more and more just peace and ease. With practice, a person can minimize all this noise and distracted thinking and have an experience of day-to-day life, of quiet, mental quiet. And that mental quiet and clarity at the same time, which is important. It's not just mental quiet of being calm and kind of out of it. It's mental quiet with clarity. The mind is stable. We're clearly aware of what's happening outside and inside of us. The more stability and clarity we have, there's just this sense of ease, a confidence that's beyond words, beyond concepts. It's our moment-to-moment experience. In terms of stages of meditative progression, for those of you who practice meditation, someone who experiences the unification of their mind, it's a phrase which Master Sheng Yen describes as 统一心, the unification of the mind. It's a state or a condition with very little, possibly no distracting thoughts. We don't get lost in daydreams and with this kind of experience or way of being. There's no more daydreaming or not only daydreaming, but worrying. There's no more worry, no more daydream, no more getting lost. The person can still think and respond to things, but their state of mind is like a steadily flowing stream. It's calm, it's clear. That's a maturation of our experience of ourself, which brings a great deal of peace and freedom. Is it enlightenment, though? Or is it the freedom or liberation of what's called Buddhist enlightenment, 开悟? Uh, is it nirvana? It's true freedom? It's not yet. It's not yet that, because the sense of self is still there. It's just a peaceful self. It's a quiet, confident, peaceful self. Um, but technically, there's still a problem there. There's still an attachment there. People who frequently have this experience of unification, they be very confident They may be very confident, very self-assured, but sometimes that can lead to arrogance. They may believe that their idea is still the best idea. They may uh, believe that their experience is still the best experience. Everybody else is kind of lesser because of that deep view of self-affirmation. I am peaceful. I am stable, and others are, not. So the fourth phase or the fourth stage or experience of oneself is actually the dissolving or dissolution of the self, the dissolving of that constant uh, inner self-attachment, or that belief in this enduring me at the center of everything being the most important, most valuable thing. With that fourth phase, self-attachment is gone. But then what are we left with? Does that mean that we're just left with no self-value then? We're free from self-attachment. What value is left? Actually, as I mentioned before, there's an unconditional value in the simple being aware of conditions. There's a simple unconditional value of just your way of being. You see the conditions at hand and you respond to them. We see that other people may need help, other people need affirmation, we can give it. If we are busy, if we are working hard, helping others, we see that and we take care of it. We take a rest. Bodhisattvas need rest. Or the human body of a bodhisattva, this bodhisattva is a being with a great vow to help others. We need rest. We need to take care of this body. If we don't, we could be caught up in either one of those problems of self-affirmation, this inferior kind of self, or a superior kind of self, or even the so-so self. With this fourth phase of the dissolving of self-attachment, we just know what needs to be done. When it's time to rest, we rest. When it's time to work, we work. When people need help, if we have the capacity, we help. If people need help, but we realize we don't have the capacity, we don't help. A bodhisattva knows when not to help. Maybe we need to call somebody else. Maybe we need to call some form of professional to help, or we need to call others to come and help as a group, and not to try to take everything uh, on our shoulders and do it ourselves. So, words can be very tricky. The dissolving of the self, on the surface, it sounds like, okay, are we just getting rid of ourselves? It's not it. We're just getting rid of this attachment to the idea that I'm great, I'm not great, I'm so-so. We're just letting go of that attachment to a self based on some sort of concept. What we have is a very wakeful state of mind that's responsive to the needs of others and ourselves. So it's been quite some time of me speaking and talking and sharing. So I'd just like to summarize that um, the process of Buddhist practice is where we first really get to know ourselves. And we use the Dharma to affirm our value. We conceptually have ideas that bring us confidence. And through practice, through experience, we gain confidence. We start to see the value in ourselves. and we start to have a mature awareness of ourselves not being either inferior or superior. We just have a very direct experience of our body, mind, and environment, and we do what needs to be done. That's wisdom. And I'd just like to finish with a method, a method that Master Huineng taught in terms of self-affirmation, which was actually his first teaching to his first student. Do you remember the part of the story of Master Huineng? This is the sixth ancestor teacher of the Chan lineage. He was being chased by all these people who wanted to, who didn't really accept him as being the recipient of the Dharma. And they just couldn't accept that this, first of all, he was a foreigner from the South. He wasn't educated. Maybe they didn't think he was good looking either. He just didn't fit the part. They didn't affirm him at all. They were chasing him to try to steal these objects of transmission, the robe and the bowl. There was one person who caught up to him, who was able to chase him down. But this person didn't just want to steal the robe and the bowl. The person whose name was, I think, Hui Ming, is that the name? Hui Ming. He didn't want just this position or status of being the sixth ancestor. He wanted to know the Dharma. So he asked Master Huineng how to practice, how to free himself from suffering. And Master Huineng said, okay, just sit there for a bit. Let's take a break. Let's calm down after all this chasing and running around. Just sit there. Let your mind be quiet. If you truly want to know yourself, if you truly want to know your mind, just don't think of good or bad. Don't think of yourself as being a good person, a bad person. And at that very moment, what is your true face? What is your original face? The 本来面目. The phrase is 不思善,不思恶. 正在这个时候,本来面目是谁? Without thinking of yourself as good or bad, what is that? Who are you then? At that moment, you can see who you truly are. What is your true face? That can be a method, right? A mind letting go of judgment, letting go of self-evaluation, a mind that's clear, open, free, very present. If you can do that, you'll know. You'll truly know your true face. You'll have this unconditional self-affirmation. If we can call it a selfless affirmation. True self-affirmation is selfless affirmation. Unconditional experience of value. Okay, so I don't know what you make of all this. If you can understand it, if it was useful, what do you think? Was this useful at all? See some nodding. If I see a lot of heads nodding, should I feel good about myself? If I don't, should I feel bad about myself? Or should I just be simply aware of heads nodding, blank stares, smiles, and just see it as it is? I'll choose the latter. I'll choose the latter and be much more peaceful and happy. Yeah, thank you for that question. That's it's very important because it's very practical. So if I heard you right, how to practice selfless service. Yeah, it sounds like we don't want to have a A doubtful self. A doubtful self is a self that suffers, right? Um, but if we're confident in serving selflessly, but we're lacking awareness in our capacity, maybe we end up doing too much. Maybe we end up working so hard that we get sick, right? Selfless service sometimes can be misinterpreted, meaning we just don't care about ourselves. We don't care about our own health or well-being. And within Chinese Buddhism, there are even phrases like 为法忘躯, which means like for the sake of the Dharma, for the sake of everyone, like not even considering our own body, our own life. And in some contexts, that makes sense. In some situations, if we need to, we can make a sacrifice. Maybe we could even give our lives to help others. But this is not an everyday thing. If we have this mindset of I have to give my life for everyone at the center, meaning you work so hard, you make yourself sick and die, is that real selfless service? That we serve so much that we get sick? That's not what selfless service means. Selfless service means that we don't do things for the sake of getting praised, or we don't serve others for the sake of getting some reward. So if we're thinking, yeah, let me go volunteer at the center and everybody will think I'm a great person. And sometimes we have that hidden intention. We want to volunteer, we want to donate money so that in the future everyone says, oh, wow, David, you're so selfless. You gave so much money, you gave so much time, you're wonderful. I feel like, wow, yes, you're right. I feel good about myself. That would be self-centered service, right? We're looking for some reward. We're looking for some affirmation. Um, is that easy to do, though? To completely be free from that? That's very difficult. Maybe at least we just want to have someone say thanks, right? Like we do our volunteering, and if we go home and nobody says anything to us, how do we feel? Do we feel like going back? Maybe not. So most of us would at least want to thanks, right? Oh, thanks for coming today. Thanks for your help. We feel good. So it's normal to have some degree of uh, self selfish service to some degree, but we practice letting go of that. We practice just doing what needs to be done because people need help. And in the process, we let go of our craving for affirmation. Everybody wins. The more we help, the more people are helped. The more we help, the less we seek affirmation. We're more and more free of self-centeredness, right? But another angle of that is that we don't want to volunteer because we feel we're not good enough. So once we volunteer enough, we then become good, right? It's still a kind of self-seeking. I'm just not good enough. Once I volunteer for the whole year, every day straight, I'm going to set a New Year's resolution. I'm going to volunteer at the center every day for 8 hours a day, give up my job, move into the center if Tangwu Fasha lets me volunteer every day and set some kind of lofty goal. And if I don't follow through with it, I'm just not going to be good enough. I'm not cut out for practice. Sometimes we're motivated by a self-hatred to serve. We want to be careful not to be driven by self-hatred. It's not that we need to make ourselves better by volunteering, right? We can let go of that. They just need help at the center. You know, I have some capacity, I have some time, and we do it. So, this selfless service is letting go of this fixation to the superior or the inferior self and seeking for rewards. And in that, it's a healthier, sustainable way of giving where everybody wins. So the question is how to be assertive in setting a boundary, right? What makes it difficult to set a boundary? It could be often that uh, we lack value of ourselves, and it becomes difficult to assert our needs. So, for example, if we are working hard, which is good, but if at a certain point we just really need rest, and if we don't rest, it can become harmful. What do we do? Well, logically, we may think, well, we just rest and we ask for a day off. But it may be difficult to do that because we may have this belief that nobody else is taking a break. Everyone else is working so hard. I have to do work as hard as they do in order for me to be valued here. Or I can't take a break. Otherwise, I'm not, a worthwhile employee. I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to be seen as lazy, right? Sometimes the barrier of asserting ourselves and just requesting for something that we need is due to this, all of these ideas based on being valuable or not. And we're often unable to see the value of rest, right? And the value of taking care of ourselves. The next question would be, well, what if I get fired? What if this will threaten my job? Well, that's where we need to make a clear decision. Do I value my health? If I do, no matter what the job, I'm not going to work in a way which is slowly deteriorating my health. If people want me to work in a way which harms myself and my health, well, sorry, I'm not going to do that. I think I may need to change jobs then. Or maybe we do value work, we value the money, we can't risk taking too much time off, so um, maybe we need to sacrifice ourselves sometimes. So it really depends on what you value, what's more important to you, right? Could it be the job itself? Maybe there's a threat to your job if you make this request. Maybe there's no threat to your job. Maybe it's just this perceived threat of people looking down at us, right? A perceived threat of, oh, people will think I'm being lazy. Uh, if we can learn to value ourselves, then we won't be worried what people think of us, how they evaluate us. And from that comes a natural assertiveness. We just ask for time off if we need it, right? If we don't, we don't. So it's important to see what the barrier is, right? And then to know what we value, what's most important. Yeah, thank you for that question. Is it possible that you have a very high expectation of yourself? Some sort of standard of, like you said, lucidity, calmness, and clarity that you've experienced in these controlled situations, reciting sutras, meditating, a kind of controlled and peaceful situation. And then when you get into daily life and experience troubles, vexations, as we call them, the Chinese word is 烦恼. I think just troubles, right? We're bothered by things, we're challenged by things. Isn't that normal though? Yeah. As a human, isn't it normal to be bothered by things, to be upset by things? Sometimes we may forget that when we have a very high expectation of ourselves, especially if we're studying Buddhism and we're often reading about this ideal of Buddha, this ideal of a completely wakeful, completely peaceful, a kind of perfect human being or a perfect psychology at least. The ideal of enlightenment, the ideal of Buddhahood, it's a great ideal to strive for. But it can be a problem when we expect that we should be there, or at least or at least we should be calm and lucid all the time. Maybe we don't expect that we all should easily reach Buddhahood or reach this perfection of our human character. But maybe we do expect that, yesterday I was so peaceful during meditation. Why am I not peaceful now? Am I doing something wrong? We start to doubt ourselves, right? If we're aware of these problems, we're not doing anything wrong. That's actually good that you're aware of being bothered, that you're aware of these vexations. That's precisely that first phase of knowing ourselves and affirming ourselves. There was one time I was experiencing a similar sentiment. It was back when I was a monk. I had just I had been in Taiwan as a monk for maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, and I had this interaction with Shifu. We call him Shifu, Master Sheng Yen. I think it was in letter form. I think he was out of the country, and I wrote a letter saying, Shifu, I'm practicing so hard, but I get so nervous when I have to go on stage and when I have to present myself. I always feel anxious, and I'm always worried that people are going to laugh at me or think poorly of me. Um, am I doing something wrong? And he just said, 这种烦恼是正常. He said, this is normal. It's normal to have this experience, to be really worried about what other people think of us. But it's the practice just to use our methods to affirm ourselves and to let go of those concerns. But it's normal, right? He provided me with an affirmation for me to then affirm myself and to affirm my practice that it was in the right direction. So actually, I think you're doing just fine. You're practicing and you're aware of your troubles. That's being on the path. If you said, I've been practicing and I have calmness and lucidity and I don't have any problems in my daily life, I would be very concerned. Some people do say that, and I feel genuinely concerned and like, oh no, I think they're not really willing to see themselves. They're not even willing to know themselves. Some people hide behind an ideal of what they read, and they think, I'm a practitioner, I'm a Buddhist, I'm not bothered by anything, and I already know the whole Bodhisattva path. I'm pretty much there. I'm not a Buddha, but I'm almost at the such and such stage of Bodhisattvahood. Those are usually the people who have the biggest problems because they're unwilling to see themselves. So, sounds like you're on the path, which is good. Sounds like you can practice just being accepting of this human condition and letting go of that. If I'm right in saying so, a high expectation, letting go of that expectation and just continuing the practice. Sure, that's a very deep question. Um, for myself, I don't feel qualified to affirm or deny someone else's dissolution of their self. I don't think, or I don't remember having dissolved myself at any point, so I don't dare to affirm or deny somebody else. That's the first thing. Second is that the stages, or this way of mapping out the process of practice through stages, that it's just to help us see the process, and we want to be careful not to see it as it has to go through this four stages. Like a person has to first affirm themselves before they dissolve themselves, or they have to first have this certain degree of maturity before, the fourth step. It's not fixed. It's just a way of mapping the process. Um, our teacher, Master Shingen, was known for taking the teachings of Chan Buddhism, which actually don't have any stages. If anything, there was two stages. There's confusion, and then there's enlightenment. There's self-attachment, and there's selflessness, right? The Chan or Zen teachings don't really talk about stages, although some do. Some schools have their own means of mapping out the process of practice, but they all recognize that it's different for everyone. Some people can experience this dissolving of the self even without having gone through a stable process of maturation. But usually, for those people, they may have a brief experience of a mind that's free of any kind of self-centered, burdensome thinking. It's just gone for a brief moment. But if they haven't had a process of a gradual affirmation and stability and maturation of their mind, usually that experience is quite shallow and short-lived. And they still suffer a lot from their old habits, right? Whereas people who I know of, I can't say I affirm them, but I have confidence that their own uh, explanation of their path of practice went through this very longer term stabilizing by affirming themselves, knowing themselves, affirming themselves, maturing themselves, until eventually they had an experience of this selflessness, which was long lasting, or we could say more profound and transformative. Do they become perfect? Not that I can see, and they themselves don't say they're perfect or Buddhas, but that experience of selflessness was very clear, very transformative, so that, yes, they still have troubles in day-to-day life, but they're very quick to identify them. And those troubles don't bother them so much as they did before. Um, so it's important to see these stages as just a way to mark progress on the path, right? There's no definite progression through them, but that I think to have a realistic expectation of progressing through these stages takes a lot of time. And even if we do have glimpses of selflessness, there's no need for celebration really, because the practice continues. Our self, or our superior self or inferior self habit will come back, and we just continuously practice dealing with that, becoming aware of it, and gradually letting it go. Um, so are there stages? Yes and no. They map the path, but we don't want to get too fixated on them. Most important is just to continue to be aware. Be aware of ourself, stabilize it, and let go of these self-centered patterns. We find ourselves more and more free. So that's where I'm at. I'm just practicing, finding myself more and more free. Yeah, thank you. We could say that all of these stages, um, we want to be careful not to be too self-conscious about it in thinking that, right now I'm knowing myself. Right now I'm affirming myself, or, my practice isn't good enough. I still need to mature myself. I'm not mature enough. And, I haven't yet let go of myself. I need to dissolve myself. If there's any kind of self-consciousness or intention in that way, um, it can be an obstacle because the intention to get rid of ourself or to dissolve ourself is in fact the self. So we can't do it intentionally. It's just a result of developing our awareness, right? So as we practice using the methods, we'll naturally start to know ourselves better. We don't need to have this self-conscious intention. We just use the method. So for example, a method could be practicing reciting a Buddha name, or a method could even be just to relax the body. As we practice that method, we start to become aware of our patterns of thinking, and that's knowing ourselves. As we continue to relax, or as we continue to recite the Buddha name, our sense of self becomes more concentrated naturally. There's more and more just recitation. It's more and more just relaxation. As we continue, our experience matures so that at some point, maybe even we don't need to actively recite the Buddha name, or we don't need to actively try to relax. We just experience relaxation, or we experience this quiet and clear mind. If we continue to stay with the practice, naturally, this self-dissolution happens, right? It's not something that we can intend or control. If we do, the moment we try to intend and control, that's precisely this self-centered pattern coming back. So the stages are just a way to map out this progression that happens naturally as long as we stay with the practice. Yeah, I think I get the gist of your question. We live in society for so many years and we develop these ways of thinking and being that are very deep rooted. How do we deal with them? With Buddhism, how do we deal with them? Is there one method? Other methods? Well, in Buddhism, we both use concepts and methods as an antidote to deal with all of the many ideas that we cling to, which we've accumulated. And it's very deep-rooted views that we've absorbed from society, which lead to a lot of suffering. So with Buddhism, we have both concepts, which are antidotes to these, what we say, upside down views of the world that lead to suffering. Buddhism has conceptual views that can help us have a perspective on life and that can guide us in how to practice so that we uproot the attachment to these views and we uproot these patterns of behavior. So it's both a conceptual or theoretical framework that Buddhism provides and a practical one where there's methods. So for example, Buddha nature, that's a concept. All the ideas behind that, it's a concept and a theory. Reciting the Buddha name is a method. If we believe that our nature is the same as the Buddha, if we have a strong confidence in that, and that all of these other ideas that bring us so much suffering, patterns of behavior and ideas, if we believe that those are just changing, temporary, conditioned, then we'll have confidence to use this method to help us uncover this Buddha nature or Buddha way of being or this wakeful way of being. So the path is both conceptual, involves learning, and it's practical. It involves applying methods. So whatever method you use, there are many methods, but we use the theory to guide us in that path. And gradually I wouldn't say fight back, but we gradually dissolve the uh, the barriers that come from our uh, learned attachments and habitual behavior. We gradually dissolve it by applying ourselves to the method and by nourishing ourselves with the concepts. But in addition to that, we need people. We do need affirmation and support from people. So the Buddhist path is not something just to do in isolation. Just reading books and just meditating, that's a dangerous way because we need the support and the reflection of people around us to help us continue on the path. So, in time, with practice, you'll find yourself more and more free. The more free you find yourself, the more confidence you have.